To our modern society, it might be hard to relate to these images. But believe it true, humanity really did grow to this size. Perhaps you're wondering what humans call people like this. Well, they called them fat. They suffered from obesity, one of the deadliest conditions ever. However, at the time, it was a sign of wealth and prosperity. As the decades passed, we began to see major developments in modern science and how information was distributed. Because of this, society began to learn.
Could you situate us a little bit with the problem? The problem of obesity is, on one level, a very simple one. Anyone who eats more than they need will become fat.
We began to move more, eat healthier, and educate one another. And collectively, as a planet, we came together and decided to end obesity forever.
We are not just fat people. We are people.
I do agree that there is stigma that I have to deal with because I am fat.
Because the real elephant in the room here is fat phobia.
These are my arms. These are the arms that I have. It's not my problem that you don't want to look at them.
Let's all gain 300 pounds and be fat.
Thinness does not grant you a better life. I do not owe you thinness.
I am fat and beautiful, and I am worth every bit of space that I take up.
But these women are dying.
America is facing a major health crisis.
Britain is too fat and is getting fatter, and doing nothing is not an option.
2.7 billion adults will be overweight or obese by 2025.
Researchers say it's particularly alarming in the developing world.
This country is getting fatter.
People are dying from avoidable diseases caused by obesity, such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer.
Did you know cancer research were called fat shamers?
Well,
it's ridiculous.
Okay. The solution is their own hands.
This is a person that's eating themselves to death, you fucking assholes.
Yes, despite knowing about the health consequences of obesity for centuries, humanity has continued to get fat. Unhealthy fast food restaurants have filled the high streets, chronic diseases have skyrocketed, and physical inactivity is far more conventional to us than generations before. We are amid a global epidemic, yet some don't necessarily choose to look at it that way.
1015 W18, New York.
Hello, New York City. Thanks for tuning in on this beautiful summer's day. The date is June 4th, 1967, and boy do I have news for you. It looks like Central Park is occupied today by around 500 fat protesters celebrating obesity. They are calling it the Fat Inn, and people can be seen eating ice cream, holding signs, and burning exercise books. I'll be sure to give you more information when I can.
God bless America.
My name is Dr. Christopher Salute. I am the CEO of Bold Media and Bold Magazine. This movement came around like the 1960s, 1970s, like late 1960s. People started to protest against anti-fat and biases. And I think, after that, there were many different divisions, many different sects of fat acceptance. But I would define it as the acceptance of a fat body and the anti-fat.
The fat acceptance movement looks to change anti-fat bias in social attitudes by eliminating and raising awareness of discrimination towards overweight and obese persons.
Most people in society do not like me because I am fat.
Within the past 2 months, I have been the unwilling participant of a verbal attack in public, once waiting for a bus on a street corner, another time on a bus with vicious language.
About what?
Pardon, about my size.
That if we could break some of the myths associated to being fat.
What myths?
What myths?
Yeah.
It's unhealthy.
Being a slob, being dirty, being dumb, being lazy, stupid. Thin people always have a good sense of humor. Fat people are jolly.
The movement has been incomparable to victories concerning civil liberties, women's rights, or the attitude towards those who identify as LGBT, we have continually stayed unkind to fat people.
Fat bastard.
For most of us, the movement has been seen as nothing more than a historical and social footnote, but the 2010s have offered people a magnifying glass in which to view that footnote. This decade of social media and technological obsession have given fat people a platform and community to truly redefine and spotlight the movement like never before. As the movement has grown in supporters, as has its influence, and nothing confirms a new age of mainstream fat acceptance more than this.
They call her the first size 22 supermodel. Tess Holliday appearing boldly on the cover of Cosmo UK.
I didn't expect it to go global and for everyone to be talking about it.
But everyone is. Thousands showing their support on social media, some using the hashtag Representation Matters, writing, "This is easily the best thing I've seen this week." Major props to Cosmo UK for a genuinely body-positive cover.
The message that I wanted to put across, the message that did get across, was that, like, things are changing.
That's right. Things were definitely changing. In October of 2018, 20-stone Tess Holliday infiltrated the fashion world to grace the cover of Cosmopolitan, and the world had no idea how to react. What did Tess Holliday's cover represent? Well, there was one man who could answer that question for us. Britain's greatest national treasure, Piers Morgan.
This is the cover of Cosmo magazine. This apparently is supposed to inspire positive thoughts about body image.
Yes, it's about acceptance, Piers.
Yeah, she's 300.
Everybody
She's
looks
£300
like a
this model from
size.
LA. She wants us to believe in the interview she's never been happier because she's never been heavier. Have you ever met anybody, male or female, has ever said that sentence and meant it? How can that inspire anybody to be anything but very large?
Reflecting her body. That people come in all shapes and sizes.
Oh, please. That is not a role model image that you should be encouraging young people to aspire to be.
Accept your body.
The British public
Stop fighting
completely agree with me. Is this a positive body image? 5'3" and £300? How many said no? 78%. She continues to want to be celebrated for being 5'3" and £300. I keep saying, I'm sorry, that's not to be celebrated.
Something you just said, though.
See, what would it be? When you're that big, you can die.
The fat acceptance movement isn't suggesting that anyone gain 50 pounds or eat to excess. We're hoping that people will accept us, anyone, as they are, regardless of their shape or size.
The fat acceptance movement had achieved something many of us wouldn't have ever thought was possible. It was now at the forefront of an industry that had arguably been the most responsible in ostracising the fat amongst us. But just like practically everything else in Western society, we were divided on how to perceive this cover. Was it a huge step forward in personal acceptance, or exploitation by cold capitalists who are essentially glorifying obesity? If I couldn't speak to Tess, it was important I could speak to someone from the same industry. That's why I headed to London to meet Jocelyn. Jocelyn is a plus-size model who has worked with brands such as QVC, Versace and Vivienne Westwood. I knew she couldn't speak directly for Tess, but I felt she could offer some plus-size expertise. When we spoke on the phone, you said about before you were a skinnier model before, you've gone through that
I was a traditional model
Traditional
before,
model, yeah.
And I've gone through the transition of becoming a plus.
Right.
But the plus is when I see it as you're the same size you were the traditional, but you just get more curves, more rounded.
Right.
But what's happening now with a lot of plus models that they're calling themselves plus, like for example my girl Tess,
yeah,
on the front of Cosmopolitan, she's not. When you're a traditional model, when you start, you've got to be a minimum height of 5'8".
Yeah.
She's I think 5'2". And she's like a size 26 or something, 24. So she's like there and there. So that doesn't denote being a plus because it doesn't bring anything positive to the bigger woman or the curvier woman.
Is it a height issue then, or is it a weight issue? Do you think?
To be a model, it says on every agency, every notable agency, you have to be a minimum height of 5'8". Mm-hmm. So when you've got girls like her or these fat girls, I call them fat because I think if you're plus, you should be given you should be. They're all attractive. They're pretty girls, but you should be in proportion.
Yeah.
You know, or is in proportion. Some are pear-shaped, apple-shaped, or banana-shaped, or whatever. But you shouldn't be like this. You know, for me, in my opinion, I just think she doesn't represent the plus model or what a plus model exactly is. So why would you then use the word model, as in the traditional models? You have supermodels. The supermodels are not all spotty or, you know, got fat arms or covered in scars, whatever, or just not complementary to what they're supposed to be selling.
So for you, would you then take the Tess Holliday situation and you would put her in her own sort of bracket of models? So
I don't call them.
There's the traditional models, there's the plus size models, and then
I don't know what label you would call them, because they're not really. What is she modelling? She can't go and walk down a catwalk with a traditional model and wear the same outfit, because the traditional model we have here should be down here and just there. So it doesn't sell what is a bigger woman, a curvier woman would look like.
Jocelyn's reaction was shocking, but it did make sense. She described the model as an ultimate for humanity's adoration. She seemingly implied a grey area in which women, in particular, would have positive plus-size representation without it becoming radical. Make no mistake, Jocelyn is considered as overweight, but perhaps offered a more acceptable alternative to that of morbid obesity. Should we put them in the programmes? Should we put them on the catwalks? Should we put them on the magazine
The thing is,
covers?
they don't put those round girls, they don't put them on the catwalk, but they do label them plus.
Yeah.
Because you think to yourself, if now a woman's waist is 50, that is not a good look.
Yeah.
You can't have your shape as 56, 52, 58. That is not a good look.
Yeah.
You know, because you're just round.
Yeah, it's like painting such a big spectrum then, isn't it, under just the same brush.
Because there should be between 8 and 10 inches between bust, waist and hips.
Yeah.
But if there's 2 inches, no.
I couldn't find my meeting with Jocelyn anything other than productive. It was interesting to hear a plus-size woman debunk the modern myths of a community she was a part of. I decided to share a memento of our meeting online, and from doing so I was introduced to a section of the fat acceptance movement which varied drastically from what I'd encountered in London. So I've just come back from London and I put a post on Instagram, basically just saying, look, I'm working on this fat acceptance documentary and I'm looking for more contributors. And I'm actually kind of shocked at the response from some of the fat activists. So I've asked for people with weight loss stories, I've asked for scientists, and they're worried that that's going to negate their position. One person said, you need to understand that the other side of the fat acceptance movement is hatred for people simply wanting to live their life. There is no other side. You want participation? Focus on fat people only. How they can't simply function in today's world without being told to kill themselves. I can understand why they have reacted like this in a way, because I can imagine they do get a lot of abuse online, but I don't think this post looked like I was confronting them. It wasn't malicious or anything like that. It was just a simple post asking for contributors, and they've really gone on the defensive straight away. But I would like to have a conversation with these people, and I think that's important that we try to do that.
I get the same pushback, a lot of pushback. I wrote an article about why I created Bold Magazine and why I created Bold Media as a white, seemingly fit, cisgender, straight male. You know, I get it. People are weary of you, and they're weary of me. They are weary of your intentions as a white male, who are typically the people, and I've seen pictures of you, you're fit. So as somebody who would typically be their anti-fat person, the person who would be ostracizing them, they're weary that you might be using this documentary, as I've just noted, right? You might be using this documentary as a way to hurt their movement, and as a way to hurt their feelings, and as a way to hurt them. So yeah, they would definitely be guarded.
As the days passed, I came to suspect I had entered the fat digital Wild West, inhabited by the same-minded social justice cowboys who had become synonymous with American college campuses. I continued to reach out to these activists, however they were quick to decline a call, instead heading to social media to dispute the project, and myself as its author. The most prominent reason for not contributing seemed to be a meeting I had planned with fat acceptance debunker Dermeister Entertainment. Dermeister is one of many YouTubers who creates compilations mocking the idea of fat acceptance. I tried to put myself in their shoes and I could understand their fear. What if my intentions were to simply mock them? I'm sure they receive enough of that kind of attention anyway. However, I felt there was more of a free speech issue at play here. They had labelled Dermeister a neo-Nazi and a voice of hate. If this was true, I felt it was even more important to speak to him. Perhaps then we could all sympathise with what fat activists were up against.
These fat, jiggly arms, okay? If you have a problem with that, keep it to yourself.
After a few more days of hostile private messages, a popular fat influencer agreed to speak to me, under the condition she would remain completely anonymous. I couldn't pass on this opportunity, as it was becoming clear these interviews would be hard to obtain.
We started? So I probably need to start off by asking you, what is the reason why you want to stay anonymous?
Because you are not going to be able to tell the story. I don't want my name or my brand attached to this in any way. I especially don't want you to be profiting from me or the most marginalised in the community. I've told everyone to avoid you, but if someone has to speak, then I'll do it. You just won't be profiting from me.
What about me makes me unable to tell this story?
You're a cis white thin male with privilege. How in any way does that make you right to tell this story?
I don't quite understand how race becomes a factor when we're talking about obesity. Like if we were doing a story about African Americans and Black Lives Matter, then I could see the reason for concern. But this is completely different.
And that is the clearest example of your fatphobic ideology so far. We don't need people like you telling our stories.
I hope you understand that the reason why I'm making this is out of curiosity. Do you recognise that some people don't understand fat acceptance?
But do you recognise that society fucking hates us? Try living in a world where you are constantly anxious about being abused for taking up space on public transport, worried that you'll be humiliated by breaking a tiny seat in a restaurant, humiliated every time you go to the doctors and they ask you if you've considered losing weight.
But I mean, isn't that the doctor's job? If they have health concerns about you, shouldn't they tell you about that?
So you presume they could tell someone is healthy just by looking at them?
I mean, if someone's morbidly obese, wouldn't that be somewhat of an indicator?
I think you should just read into things a lot more and then you'll understand how naively salacious you are. We just want to exist. What part of that do you not understand?
I totally understand that, and the idea that I wouldn't want you to exist is completely ludicrous. I think the problem is that people who debunk fat acceptance don't have a problem with you, they have a problem with accepting fatness. So to glorify and to normalise obesity reduces your existence. It reduces the likelihood of you living longer.
So what if a fat person kills themselves because of constant abuse? How will they live longer then?
See, that's something I 100% agree with. People shouldn't abuse you because you're fat. People shouldn't abuse anyone. But is the answer to settle for a healthy mind and a healthy body, or should we look to encourage people to improve both?
Privilege, privilege, privilege. Right, I think I'm done. You probably won't include this, but oh well. I think both you and this film are completely disgusting, and I will actively tell people not to watch this film. You support diet culture and hate speech and represent what's wrong with the social attitude towards fat acceptance. Right, can someone get this mic off me, please?
I couldn't help but feel the argument put forward was a tad hypocritical. I couldn't talk about the fat acceptance movement because of my size, race, gender and sexuality, yet she didn't want to be judged purely on her size. If I was unable to speak on this subject, it indicated a new wave of fat acceptance, an era in which tribalism would reign supreme.
We need to really get back to the source of body superiority, and we need to level the playing field, because the thing is, if thin people don't want to dismantle diet culture, then it's not fucking going anywhere. And thin people are not going to dismantle a system that serves them. They're just not. And so that's why we're so loud on the fucking internet, because people genuinely believe that fat people deserve to be miserable, dead, unhappy, unsuccessful, and unlovable.
As I continued to reach out for contributors, these ideological wars continued. Fat acceptance was a well-guarded community in which slim white guys couldn't enter.
I know that as a woman who's a sort of size 12 occasionally, size 14 mostly, a size 16 sometimes, totally has thin privilege. And I can see now that my entire life, because it's only been in the last couple of years that I've put on a bit of extra weight because of going through menopause after my hysterectomy, that my body's changed quite significantly. I can see now that my entire life I have had thin privilege, and I still have thin privilege compared to a lot of other people.
Thin privilege is an automatic privilege that someone has when they're thin. The examples before, they don't have to worry about not fitting in a chair at a restaurant. They don't have to worry about, you know, they can do activities automatically without worrying, like bungee jumping. They don't have to worry about if the cable's going to support their weight. They don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about going to laser tag and making sure that the vest fits over them. They don't have to worry about fitting in this world because the world is built to fit them. Unlike overweight people, where the world is built for someone's smaller body, we have to ask the questions, can we still get on a plane without having to spend money for an extra seat? Get seatbelt extenders and, you know, get special accommodations. And some places don't provide accommodations, and so automatically we are outed as not fitting into this environment. And it's embarrassing. We want to be able to go out somewhere without feeling embarrassed, just be able to get an accommodation and be able to enjoy ourselves like everyone else. But like I said, the world is built for thin people, and thin people automatically get the privilege to walk around and sit and wear whatever they want without, you know, worrying about fitting in.
I had underestimated fat acceptance. The movement had far stronger and tested philosophical beliefs than expected. If I wanted to understand this, I would have to compromise. Luckily, after a few more days, I began to make contact with a fat activist from Texas. She agreed to talk to me so I could find out more about the movement. Hiya. Sorry about the late call. We had a few problems and stuff.
Oh, that's okay.
I just wanted to ask, have you always been a plus size advocate? Is that something you've always been?
I mean, yeah, ever since I was little, I've been plus size. I mean, ever since I was like 3. So I've always kind of like represented that demographic. And as I got older, like pretty much when I was in college, it kind of became more of a thing.
Did you go through any sort of, what were the hardships of that through school? Was it something like anything you had to deal with?
Oh yeah, like ever since like elementary school. Well, first off, when I was like when I was little, like I had to be on lots of medications because I had asthma, so it caused me to gain a lot of weight at like the age of 3 and 4. So I could never fit into like the regular clothes that the little girls wore, and I always felt so bad because I had to wear like the women's clothes, and they were really ugly at the time. They were like grandma clothes. And so I got like picked on all the time. And like especially elementary school, like girls would come up to me and like whisper like, hey, someone said you're fat or something, and I would just feel terrible. And I would just like not even tell my mom. Like I'd be too embarrassed to even tell my mom, so I just go home and like hold it in.
The one of the things that I want to ask every plus size fat activist that I speak to is how they define the fat acceptance movement. So for you, what does that mean to you?
It's about loving yourself as you are and accepting yourself as you are right now. That's kind of what I see it as. Some other people may see it differently. But I believe, like, if you want to lose weight, that's cool. But you can love yourself right now. You have to accept yourself right now. Because if you don't accept yourself right now, you're never going to accept yourself. Because you're just never going to be good enough for yourself. So I guess not to make assumptions about people and just accept, like, okay, that person's fat, but they're still a wonderful person. And being fat is not a bad thing. Like, that's one thing that we really stand for, is it's just another word. It's just another descriptor. Just like I would say you're thin. It's not negative. It's just a description word. And so I hate that people are making it a negative thing and using it in a negative way, because we need to take back the word. So I guess for that word, honestly, I guess to answer your question, my end goal would be for the word fat to not be used negatively.
It was a common argument made by fat activists, and I could understand why someone like Felicia, who suffered years of bullying, would have a strong desire to redefine a word that had tortured her for so long. Were there negative stereotypes attached to the word? Sure. But surely there must be more to it than that. I mean, why else was it a negative word? I got it. Fat can kill you.
I need to talk about, obviously, some of the critiques of the fat acceptance movement. And I was just wondering maybe if you could sort of give me a few comments on what you think about this. So people say, if you're fat, you can't be healthy. Do you think this is a valid argument that people make?
No, of course not, because I know for a fact that I'm 100% healthy. I mean, I just went to the doctor last week. My blood pressure was perfect. I know that I have good cholesterol.
No, I don't think that making a health-based argument to be anti-fat acceptance is a valid argument for a few reasons.
Be fat and fit. One doctor says yes, and the controversial new does.
Don't compliment weight loss.
Normalize morbid obesity. That's kind of a good thing.
What the fuck was going on?
So what if like fat's the same as brunette or the same as blue eyes or whatever? What if there's nothing wrong with being fat? It's just that society makes us feel like there's something wrong with being fat. What if that word fat is just a description of the size of someone's body?
So we're going to dive forward wherever you reach.
He says research supports the view you can be overweight, even obese, and still be healthy.
Reach like a tree, reach.
Do you think doctors are wrong when they say to patients you should lose weight?
Absolutely. I think that doctors, on the whole, should be considered guilty of malpractice when they tell people that they ought to lose weight for the sake of improving their health.
You're a professor of law, you're not a doctor. What right do you have to question medical advice?
I had assumed for my whole life that being fat didn't come with any particularly attractive health advantages, and therefore could be used as a fundamental reason as to why society would not be willing to accept fatness.
To say something like that is a brazen kind of misleading statement, which serves no social benefit, which serves no health benefit, and which is just for the purposes of being inflammatory. It's a dangerous thing to say. I think that he's wrong.
What reasons would fat activists have for promoting healthy obesity? Well, perhaps this was the one argument based in undeniable facts that could seemingly disrupt the appeal of their entire movement. That couldn't be a good feeling. The only way fat acceptance would garner overwhelming support would be to fight back against science. And boy, did they give it a go. Fat acceptance was now ready to fight fact with feeling. Cancer research, you are fat shamers.
What is the biggest preventable cause of cancer after smoking?
Oh goodness me.
Oh, I don't know now. Drinking?
Sunbeds?
No? Well, open that and it will tell you.
Oh, is it? Oh, really?
Oh, right, wow, okay.
Obesity. Yeah.
So I just seen this obesity poster made by Cancer Research UK that says, guess what the biggest preventable cause of cancer is after smoking? Obesity! I'm gonna go online now and I bet you I can find an article shit talking this.
Well, apparently so. Cancer Research hates fat people.
Right. Is anyone currently working on getting this piece of Cancer Research UK advert removed from everywhere? Is there something I can sign? How the fucking is this okay?
Your feelings don't matter. If I have scientific evidence, scientific proof, and your feelings on the other side, I'm picking the science every single fucking day. And even if I don't have to respect your feelings.
Who is not worthy? What soul is not worthy of dignity and respect right now?
I don't have to change my way of thinking, my way of living to accommodate your feelings. I don't have to. So, what the fuck is the problem with the world right now? There's so much stupidity and so much shit going on.
I didn't particularly sympathise with those who were offended by the campaign. After all, Cancer Research were doing their job and should be commended for that. But perhaps I was part of the problem, and my own fat phobia was blinding me from the issues in this campaign. Luckily, there is a way to test this. I would take the fat phobic test.
So what I've got in front of me here is a survey that's going to help increase self-awareness of weight bias in society. The fat phobic scale, listed below, are 14 pairs of adjectives sometimes used to describe fat or obese people. For each adjective pair, please place an X on the line closest to the adjective you feel best describes your feelings and beliefs. So what this is going to do, it's going to help me understand and help society understand their fat phobic biases. Okay, and question number 1, lazy or industrious? You can obviously see the intentions of this survey from this first question. I guess the assumption they want people to make is that we're going to go in and we're going to say fat people are lazy, but I think the majority of people in society don't think that. A fat person is the President of the United States, so I'm going to say fat people can very much be industrious. Number 2, no willpower or has willpower. Once again, that's playing on stereotypes. They want us to go in and say fat people have no willpower because they eat so much. And then I guess the argument would be you be fat phobic because that's not the case. Fat people can be fat because of medical reasons, and of course they can be. Is there some lack of willpower there? I would argue there probably is, because if you're eating constantly to get to that overweight condition, I think maybe your willpower, and that's not bad to recognise that your willpower is lacking if you're eating so much and indulging too much. So I'm going to say healthy free. Fast and slow. I mean, that's ridiculous. 1, you're slower. Here we go. Attractive or unattractive. I mean, that's completely subjective, isn't it? Has nothing to do with health. So, I mean, why can't a fat person be attractive? Some people might not like them because that's completely up to the person, isn't it? It's their preference. So why can't they be attractive? Completely subjective. And what it wants you to assume, this test, is that we have these thoughts about fat people every time we see one on the street. Oh my God, that's a lazy person. That's an unattractive person. That's a slow person. That's a weak person. That's an inactive person. That's a self-indulgent person. That's someone who dislikes or likes food too much, or is shapely or shapeless, or undereats or overeats. Does anybody really have this much going on in their mind about a fat person? That's the thing. I don't think this fat phobia exists in the way that they think it does. And it equates it too much to things like racism and homophobia, and it's trying to make a case with this survey that I just don't think is there.
Considering how frustrating I found the test, my results surprised me. Out of a possible score of 5, with that being the most fat phobic, I scored it was a good score. it kind of expressed me as a moderate. So as someone fairly neutral, I knew I disliked the health-based arguments put forth by fat acceptance. But what did I like? Well, after that ridiculous survey, I felt like I needed a little bit more time to tell.
People who have fat phobia will only see the negative connotations that come with being overweight, which is being lazy or being a slob. People will think, oh, you probably have BO because you don't take care of yourself, and wanting to separate them. Either people are disgusted by us or they laugh at us like we're clowns. And it's hurtful because we're still people. We have feelings. We have dreams and goals. And for people to just look at us and think we're just waiting for a heart attack to happen is awful.
As I was spending more and more time in the digital fatopia, I became comfortable with images of morbid obesity. It felt normal seeing people like this, and this every day. In a strange way, I actually started to become more self-accepting. I began to familiarise myself with the community, and even made a few fat acquaintances along the way. Many times I wanted to come to the aid of fat people when I could see them dealing with controversy in the comments. People at 25 stone could receive the same sort of adoration as stars like Beyonce and Kim Kardashian. You are perfect, no matter what you look like. However, no matter how much time I spent in the community, I just couldn't get the health-based argument out of my head. When I saw a post promoting healthy morbid obesity, I would snap out of Fatopia and realise how easy it is to fall into enclosed echo chambers. I needed someone to rebalance my mindset. I needed a no-nonsense Fatbuster.
Watch out, fat families. It's time to get off your wobbly bums and melt that lard. I'm Steve Miller, no-nonsense Fatbuster. I'm here to stamp out the obesity epidemic that is sweeping the UK. One massive family at a time.
Okay, so my name is Steve Miller. I was the TV presenter of Fat Families. Also in the UK, what I do is run a weight loss business called Fatnosis, and my ultimate goal is to help Britain reduce its waist size and reduce the obesity epidemic.
I'm sure you're probably aware there was a bit of a fury against the Cancer Research Campaign when they said that obesity is the second most preventable cause of cancer after smoking, and there was sort of people have said that's fat shaming. What were your sort of thoughts on that when that came out?
Well, my view on that is, look, the reality of life is if you are obese, you're more at risk of cancer. That is, you know, research that is endorsed by the medics. So actually warning us about being too fat or obese so that we avoid the cancer risk is constructive. And I think with those words, fat shaming, my view is we've got to get over it a little bit here and get into the real world, which is if you are too fat, you are much more likely to have cancer.
The word fat, one of the women I spoke to this week said that the ultimate goal of the fat acceptance movement is to remove the stigma of the word fat and make it a positive rather than a negative. Do you think that's damaging?
I don't think we should get rid of the word fat. I think it's ridiculous because if we do, we're going to be normalising fat. The other thing to say, of course, is people don't seem to have a problem with the word thin.
Yeah.
They don't seem to have a problem with the word thin. So what my message is let's not ditch the word. You know, think of it like this. You know, the word fat won't kill you. Being fat can kill you. Now, I think what would be great is if the fat acceptance movement said, do you know what? Judge the person. That's the important thing. But actually, we're not saying that being fat is great. It's not. it kills you. Now, if they were able to say that, then I think we'd be shaking hands and having a party together.
Yeah. I just want to ask you one final question. Do you think fat acceptance then glorifies obesity?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do. I think it glorifies it. I think the word probably more appropriate is normalising it.
Right.
It normalises it. And I don't agree with fat, promoting anything to do with fat acceptance. I mean, would we be promoting thin acceptance?
That's interesting,
Being really skinny acceptance? We really have this issue with the word fat. We have an issue with the word, not the word, the whole debate around fat. And unfortunately, my opinion is if we carry on down that road, our nation will just get fatter. And potentially, yes, it could break the NHS, because these guys, in the NHS are under a lot of pressure, and a lot of that is triggered by obesity issues, and more people will die early. Some of the reports out there are shocking. I mean, one report actually says that kids born today could die before their parents.
Right. Yeah.
That ain't good.
No, not at all.
Steve was outspoken but offered a much needed dose of reality. How could I truly become an ally of fat acceptance when the facts surrounding obesity were so horrifying? I came to realise that what I truly liked about fat acceptance wasn't something native to that movement. What I liked was a world in which representation was accepted. Do I think women with darker skin should be offered more opportunities? Definitely. Should women be deprived of being sexy and glamorous because of stretch marks? No. Should people with disabilities be given just as much respect as everyone else? Absolutely. And I also didn't feel as if this body type had to be indicative of women overall. I managed to arrange a meeting with Lorna, a fat positive pageant queen who takes pride in her appearance. I wanted to see if I could talk to Lorna seriously about the health implications of obesity.
I'm very confident in how I am. However, I know that if I want to have children, I need to lose weight. So I need to reduce my BMI to get to a healthy weight to have children. I think there's a massive difference between fat shaming and encouraging healthy eating and exercise. I think healthy eating and exercise should be encouraged. I know a lot of plus size girls from my pageant are Zumba instructors, dance teachers, they're very active people, and I think it's not necessarily seen as much that there are a lot of plus size women in the fitness sector.
You'd recognise that they're probably the people at the lowest end of the spectrum and the biggest end of the spectrum. There could be problems there for...
I recognise that there could be, however, it's the individual's choice to be how they are. I know there was a lot of things about, she's a strain on the health system and she's this and she's that. There's a lot worse things in this day and age than fat people on the health system. I know in Derby especially, there's massive drug problems, there's alcoholism, smokers. Some people are fat because of their health, and people are quite quick to judge and state that they've eaten tons of food and their lifestyle choices have led to that, and often it's not always the lifestyle.
I agree that because sometimes it's like we don't know what's happening with that person, and I don't think we deserve the right to. But then also at the same time, people say, well, we pay for this system, for the NHS, especially in this country and other places. I've interviewed people like in Canada and stuff, and we pay for this health care, so we should get a say if it's costing us all this money. So do you see where those people are coming from, or is
I mean, I struggle with the NHS personally. I think that they do a brilliant job. I'm not saying that they don't, but some of the waiting times for appointments are quite shocking. My grandma's quite poorly. Some of the elderly are apparently a burden on the NHS at the moment. I do struggle. I have massive issues with the NHS personally because I'm currently waiting for an appointment. a diagnostic form. It's actually nothing to do with my weight. But it's causing me a lot of pain, and they've said it's 2 to 3 months. So personally, I have private healthcare because I'm willing to pay.
Lorna was able to recognise the health consequences of obesity, but suggested it should be up to the individual as to how they choose to live their life. It was a compelling point, but it was difficult to agree with this suggestion in a country with a nationalised health service crisis. Similarly, I felt we owed younger generations more. Should we tell children it's okay to be fat? Lorna stated her weight would reduce her chances of having children. Surely that's not the message we want to send to kids. As I spoke to more and more fat acceptance activists, I wondered if perhaps they had confused the self-acceptance of body and mind. Could fat acceptance promote a healthy mind while striving to be better physically? You are not worthless, but obesity is. What does obesity do for you? Obesity couldn't be accepted. It is something that has to be judged, because without doing so, how can we help people avoid chronic diseases? I wanted to speak to a medical professional about this healthy mind, healthy body idea. Dr. Marion Stupard is a medical doctor and television presenter who has interviewed Margaret Thatcher. If she was able to press the Iron Lady, I knew she would be able to speak honestly about fat acceptance.
So what are your fears then, Dr. Miriam, about normalising curves and having a bigger range of clothes available for people who are bigger than average?
Well, it's not just normalising curves. I think that the plus sizes and glamorous overweight models is actually making people think that it's healthy to be like that. They think that their weight is a sign of health. It's deeply unhealthy.
Do you worry about society normalising obesity?
Well, yes, I do. And I think that the advent of supersized models is a step in that direction. Plus-size models as cover girls actually does normalise obesity. It not only normalizes it, it makes it seem like a good lifestyle choice, and that it encourages other people to be the same size as the models. So I think that normalizing obesity is a very dangerous path to go down, because obesity isn't normal. There is no way we can say that obesity is normal. When you're fat, your metabolism has gone haywire and you've lost control of it. The other thing is that fat isn't neutral. It's not just this jolly, bouncy part of your body. Fat is toxic. It leads to body-wide inflammation, which can cause a variety of illnesses, including diabetes, heart disease, stroke. And so far, we found that obesity is involved in 13 cancers, and we're still counting. So it scares me. It really scares me that fat could be seen as normal, because fat brings with it a lot of ill health, which may not be obvious at the time, but it's simmering away underneath.
The issues that I've come across as well, there's another prominent one. You obviously named like the diseases like cancer and so on. A lot of people that are obese suffer with mental health issues. So how do we deal with being sensitive and sympathising with the mental health issues of those who are fat shamed, yet still voice concern for the obesity?
I'm totally against fat shaming. I'm totally against shaming anything. First of all, it's unkind. It can even be cruel. And it does nothing positive at all. It can't bring about change. It does exactly the opposite. So there is no place anywhere for fat shaming. And no one who's overweight should be subjected to it. Anyone who is likely to suffer mental health problems, because fat shaming is exactly the same as bullying. And we have plenty of information on bullying and how it can cause mental health problems, anything from anxiety to profound depression and even self-harming. So, the whole school of fat shaming, I think, should be dealt with very seriously indeed. And I think people who fat shame others should be tracked down and dealt with.
Fat shaming is not a thing. Fat people made that up.
Yeah, but I couldn't fit into a store. That's discrimination.
No. That means you're too fat and you should stop eating. Are you gonna tell the doctor that they're being mean and fat shaming you when they say you have heart disease? Obesity is a disease? Yeah, so is being a shopaholic.
Fat shaming? It's not a thing? Why don't you tell that to the teenagers that killed themselves because people are fat shaming them?
Fat shaming? Who came up with that?
Bullies and people who hate fat people that have never had to struggle with their weight.
The problem with you prefacing your video this way is that the next time you see a fat person, you don't know whether that person has a medical condition that caused them to gain weight. You don't know if their mother just died. You don't know if they're depressed or suicidal or if they just lost 100 pounds.
Dr. Marion Stupard had managed to bring the documentary full circle. If fat shaming was as negative as obesity itself, it may spotlight why so many activists were put off by my call with Dermeister Entertainment. Nevertheless, this call was important to me, and it was finally time to speak to him. It was the call that had meant many would not appear in this film, or talk to me away from the cameras. The most vocal activist of the fat acceptance movement had labelled him a Nazi, and stated that it would be fueling hate by speaking to him. After months of public attacks for the inclusion of this call, my emotions altered between intrigue and nervousness. After all, I had never spoken to a Nazi before.
Hi.
Hello.
It finally worked. How's it going?
Thank you ever so much for doing this.
I think it's really cool and really good that you're trying to hear both sides. It might sound weird coming from me, but I do really try to listen to both sides. And I myself, I'm still a little bit overweight, but I used to be hugely overweight. And so I know what that side's kind of like. But I think it's pretty cool that you're listening to both sides.
Could it be? After months of public attacks against the film for the inclusion of this hate-filled Nazi, he was just a normal guy, willing to listen and communicate with both sides of the argument. That didn't sound like Nazi tactics to me. And although I wouldn't label someone a Nazi so liberally, the roles kinda seem reversed. But perhaps he had just pulled the wool over my eyes. After all, the emotions fat people felt watching his videos were real to them, and they could justify those emotions.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm not a Nazi. First of all, I may be German. That doesn't make me a Nazi. I'm half African. I'm half German. So I'm brown. My skin is brown. So it kind of makes it weird when people call me a Nazi. So I have to laugh at that. I'm pretty much normally pretty leftist leanings. I mean, I'm not left, but I have more left leanings than I have right leanings. Put it that way.
Do you think your content is bullying?
No, I don't think it's bullying because I don't attack fat people per se. I just attack the fat acceptance movement and people that are behind the fat acceptance movement, and who think it's okay to celebrate their fatness. They will probably say I'm bullying, but I don't believe that I'm bullying, no.
A lot of the time they say they're not trying to glorify obesity. They just want to say it's okay to live, to be me. What do you think? How would you respond to that?
Well, I would respond to that. They should, really look into what they post online because it's definitely not saying that it's, they're definitely celebrating it. That's what they're doing. You have a lot of people who, especially on Tumblr, who shame people who aren't overweight and who say that people who aren't overweight or obese have privilege. And I don't think that's, I believe that is definitely celebrating obesity.
The call went nothing how I expected. I walked away shocked at how a man's character away from the social media facade could be so different. Dermeister seemed like a well-mannered and intelligent human being. His mission to fight what he felt was wrong in the acceptance of obesity seemed different from what he presented in his videos, which sometimes felt simply mean-spirited and cruel. But if you thought something was completely and utterly wrong, wouldn't you ridicule it too? I mean, isn't that the nature of the internet? My main admiration for Dermeister came from the fact he was ready and willing to talk to me, something many of the most vocal fat activists had not yet done. In many ways, I felt that both sides had used similar tactics, attacking one another without communicating and finding a common understanding. I had spoken to what was meant to be my most controversial contributor. It was now time to once again reach out to those who were so deeply put off by myself and this call, to see if we could find some kind of resolution.
I'm at a new point where I'm just gonna be at this size, and I'm gonna keep working out, and I'm gonna keep being present to my health, but I'm not gonna justify it, and I'm not gonna make myself smaller in any way, be it in the size I occupy on planet Earth or the size I occupy in my world, so that a thin person feels better about themselves.
In the interest of confidentiality, I haven't disclosed any responses from activists who had declined to appear in the film via private message or email. I have only included messages from those who have chosen to speak about myself or our conversations publicly. This is the message I sent to 5 activists who originally attacked myself or the film. To whom it may concern. A few months ago I reached out to you concerning a fat acceptance documentary I'm working on. At the time I was probably clunky in how I approached this, and I want to start off by apologising for that. I know a major reason for you not contributing involved me speaking to those who are opposed to the acceptance of fatness, and I now understand why you'd be hesitant involving yourself with a project that includes these points of view. It is important for me to state that I don't support or condone fat shaming or bullying of any kind. I can only imagine how badly that could affect people who receive that kind of attention on a daily basis. I would once again like to reach out to you because I feel our early encounter was an important moment for this film, and how I engaged with the fat acceptance movement. I would be extremely grateful to have a couple minutes of your time to ask you a few questions and let you explain why you think fat acceptance is so important. I sincerely hope that we can speak in order to portray the fat acceptance movement in the most truthful and accurate way possible. Many thanks, Connor Luke Simpson. 3 of the 5 activists decided to block me with no response. The first response I received was from that venomous bitch. She said, "Having thin people talk about their view on fat people is damaging. Their opinion on fat bodies doesn't matter, period, because they've been taught that we are filthy, disgusting shit on society's shoe. So if you aim to actually hold these people accountable for their fat hatred, that would be revolutionary. Otherwise, you are given a platform to hatred, so no thanks." I was then blocked. The second response I received was from Red Dress Loves You. I asked for a 5-minute conversation. She asked for $500 as a consolation fee for emotional labour on the topic of fatness for fat-phobic white men. I was unable to meet this demand. I was then blocked. A fat acquaintance I had made during this journey, who was not willing to speak about the movement publicly from a fear of backlash, then provided me with the screenshots of a post Red Dress Loves You posted publicly. Here's what she said. "Of course this arsehole pops up on the day I've given myself to try to rest and recuperate before a busy weekend. If you're new here, the backstory is this arrogant example of white male mediocrity tried to pop up on the business page several months ago, and in an attempt to try to drum up some interest for his fat acceptance documentary, only displayed his true fat-phobic ideology, and made it clear he also planned to give a platform to those who oppose fatness. And now, he's back. All I really want him to understand is this is not his story to tell. This is not his life. This is not his reality. Those with privilege over the oppressed should not feel empowered to tell stories that are not theirs to tell, especially when they refuse to accept the voice and opinions of those who are harmed by prejudice their privilege allows them. To my fellow fats, please do not engage with him. He is performative as fuck, and he is not your friend. He is especially not your ally, and I do not wish for him to continue with this project. If you are contacted by him, please understand he will initially say the right things, but his intentions and his vision are toxic.
I have a dream.
In my head, I saw that going differently. To say I was disappointed by these responses would be an understatement. I didn't expect my contributors to be a voice for a whole community. I expected them to offer the rest of the world insight into the movement, to help us understand. My closing words should not include sweeping statements or generalizations, so I want to be clear. My concerns about the fat acceptance movement were largely reserved to those who inhabit fat echo chambers. I was worried they were becoming victims of themselves, unable to realise the reality of obesity outside of Fatopia. I was comforted by the idea that many activists were still willing to rationally speak about the critiques of the movement, but I feared of a takeover by radicals who were generating tribalistic attitudes. I think we have failed in many ways. We have known about the health consequences of obesity for centuries, and instead of proper education, compassion and action, we now live on a globe battling an obesity epidemic. We haven't done well. We've allowed gluttony to reign supreme and then ridiculed people once that happens. I support the idea of accepting and respecting someone for who they are inside of the vessel they inhabit. I mean, not judging people because of their aesthetics was a beautiful idea. But when it came to obesity, I saw the need for judgment.
I guess to wrap everything up in a nice bow, for at least me, when I speak about my needs as a overweight person, just remember we exist. We want to look nice. We want to feel good. We want to be able to go out and have a good time. So just remember we exist and start to create a physical world that can accommodate everyone. Not everyone is going to be small. Not everyone's going to fit comfortably in a chair with arms. Not everyone is going to be slim enough to fit in a booth if the table can't move. Just working to make a space that fits everyone as best you can. And everyone has the potential to do great things. A big person, an overweight person that you just excluded could have been an amazing athlete, could have been an amazing singer, could have been a great scientist or teacher or doctor, and they have all these potentials, but because they were shredded down to nothing but their weight, maybe they lost their confidence. So all I can say is look at everyone as a person. Get to know them before you assume just anything about them, because you don't know what they're capable of. You don't know what they've been through. And who knows, maybe you'll make a friend along the way and just learn a thing or two.
How would society in 100 years look back at us? Were we the creators of Fatopia? Or were we the conquerors?
Fatopia documentary, question 1. My name is JT. I'm an artist from Buenos Aires, Argentina, an FA artist. I got involved into the fat acceptance movement back in 1998, and we were just a fistful of writers and illustrators who believed in making art out of fat. And we knew each other randomly at the forums of the mythical Dimensions magazine webpage. That was the place to be. Fattopia documentary question 4. I better start describing what the fat acceptance movement is to me. It's a space where size and weight and body diversity meets beyond the 0 to 10 size. I personally like the 11 to 50 range of sizes. Fattopia documentary question 6. I decided to use celebrities as an empirical way to demonstrate that beauty has no relation with size, because they're not just single personas, they gather the whole idea of a super person for society. It's like the ideal person to be. Fattopia documentary part 6, question 6, part 2. A society went shallow as the years went by. A society gone shallow as the years went by. Everybody agrees that celebrity is a desired people, it's a role model people, and why a person who is considered beautiful will cease to be if fat? Isn't that a way of hypocrisy?